Hey everybody, it's Jeremy with the Guillette Group, and I wanted to take an opportunity to show you Stoneybrook. We were in doing a listing presentation. I figured I'd just take a few minutes, give you a video preview of what it's all about. Stoneybrook has a lot to offer. Stay tuned and I'll tell you the 5 reasons why you should consider making Stoneybrook home. Okay, we're back. So we're here in the Duffy's parking lot, which sits just outside the gate of Stoneybrook. And it brings me to reason number 1, why you should call Stoneybrook home. So location. You just cannot beat the location of Stoneybrook. It sits just to the east of the intersection of Corkscrew Road and I-75. Right out front, you have a CVS, a Publix, gas stations, banks, Miramar outlets, and you have Duffy's. So while this is a golf course community, you can't bring your own golf cart onto the course. However, you sure can bring them to Duffy's. So on any given weekend night, you might find 20, 30 golf carts from within the community where they just come up and they're able to have, to dine and have a couple drinks at Duffy's. I have to say, please note, this is COVID time, and at this time, the restaurant's actually closed, but hopefully we'll see Duffy's open again real soon. So this is the main drive-in. And you can see it's pretty grand. There's a lot of royal palms. There's some oak here. But you see water on one side. Actually, it's probably hard to see with this angle. But there's water a good part of the way up on the right. And then there's a long par 5 on the left-hand side. This is one of the few golf communities in all of Southwest Florida that's actually pay to play. So this is not a bundled golf. It's not an equity club membership. And yet you can find lots in here where you've got beautiful golf views, water views, or preserve views. So there is a lot of options when it comes to, the housing that you have available to you in Stoneybrook. Again, the location, right off 75, you've got easy access both north and south. Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a second just to give you kind of some insight. I'm making my way over here towards the clubhouse because I wanted to be able to talk through the amenities. So I'm going to pull in here, give you a quick shot of the clubhouse, and then we're going to kind of continue on. Okay, so that was the clubhouse. We're pulling back out. And the reason I'm doing this, I'm going to go kind of around the side so we can get a little bit of a better look. To my right now, and we're going to see it a little bit from the side, is an inline skating rink. There's not many communities that have this kind of space available. There's only a couple down here that do this. So you have an inline skating rink on our right. As we pass the inline skating rink, you're going to see a full court basketball court. Behind that is actually the pool and the jacuzzi. So really nice space. In fact, the pool is a lap pool. So we're passing now. There's some bocce courts there. Probably hard to see, but we've got beach volleyball. You've got tennis courts, pickleball. There's a full-size baseball field, and you have a full-size recreational field and soccer. So you can probably see there is a lot to do here in Stoneybrook. Within the community, you have 3 different pools to choose from. You also have a fishing pier, which I'll point out as we get a little bit further. So let me talk about number 2, why you'd want to live in Stoneybrook. And that's the fees. Surprisingly, this is one of the lowest fees anywhere in Southwest Florida when it comes to a gated community. You have a 24-hour gated guard entrance, and yet the fees here are just a little over $100 a month for your single-family homes, and they're probably closer to about $300 a month for either the villas or the condos. And the reason being, you have the master association when you're in anywhere in a gated community, but then the villas and the condos are also going to have a secondary association specific to the villa or condo, and that typically includes. I'm going to pause here. I'm turning down this road because I'm a little biased. This was the road we first lived on. This is Stratham Loop. I think it's one of the nicest streets in Stoneybrook. Again, I lived there, so I'm probably a little biased. But you can see there's a lot of diversity when it comes to the homes. There's 2-story homes, there's ranches, we talked about, there's villas and condos. I'm going to show those a little bit later in the video. But the square footage, there's a lot of options. So you can get houses probably as small as 1,600 square foot. Single-family homes, and yet as high as almost 4,000 square feet. So you can get a sense, depending on what you're looking for. If you want a main floor master and a 2-story, you can find it here. If you want all the bedrooms up, you can find it here. If you want everything on the main level, of course, you can find that here. So tons of options. I think you're getting a sense for the neighborhood. It is really nicely maintained. I will call out the reason some of the fees are, or the reason the fees are lower than most of the other communities. Lawn care is not included. That's a little bit unusual, to be quite honest. So if you're not familiar with this area, typically most of the gated communities are going to include lawn care. Stoneybrook does not. You'll see a little bit of difference on some of the streets because some, as you can imagine, some owners really care about their lawns and others, frankly, they just don't. One good thing is, regardless of who's caring for the lawn, irrigation is part of the HOA. Actually, it's not part of the HOA, it's a separate fee, but all this water you're seeing is actually reclaimed and used for irrigation throughout the community. And the fees are pretty low. I mean, gosh, I think when we were here, our irrigation fee was, don't quote me on it, but it was like $6 a month at its worst, and that was what we used to water all the grass. So we're continuing on. You can see there's a couple streets here. We're going to come up and pass one of the secondary community pools. This is really designed to help. There's a lot of villas down this road here. This is Portrush that we're about to pass. And then what you're going to see is there's a big lake behind Portrush. On this lake is actually a fishing pier. So you can actually bring the kids down. You can fish in any of the lakes. I think ideally they want you to be behind your own home if you are doing that. This lake, however, is a little bit different because there's not as many homes on it. And then there was a fishing pier built. So you can bring your kids out here and actually fish right in this lake. And you'd be surprised. There's some big fish in here. So probably not getting a great scale. I just had to mount the camera on the car and do what I could. So that is one run. I'm going to turn this car around and we're going to do another one here so I can show you the full length of the walking trail. Okay, so we just turned around. This is actually one of the neatest features. I'm going to talk about it when I talk about just how active the community is. But the next thing I wanted to talk about, and it's kind of a feature that I think is pretty unique to this particular community, but this is a multi-generational community. And let me share with you what I mean by that. And in fact, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story. So when we lived here, gosh, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we were actually on this path, this very path that you look at. It's 1.3 miles, actually, so it's a pretty good, biking, jogging path, whatever, walking path. We were out on a family bike ride one night. My boys were pretty little, and Angie and I were coming up to a house that sits right along the path. And Angie, of course, you've met her through our video series, but she's a lot nicer than me. She saw an older woman unloading mulch, and she kind of brought the family to a halt and just asked the woman, if she'd mind if we helped her unload her mulch. And it was a pretty touching moment. She described to us how grateful she was that her husband had recently just had a stroke and that she was so grateful to live in a community like this where there were families of all ages and people of all ages, and this was the reason why specifically she wanted to live in a neighborhood that wasn't 55 and over and that did have, younger families and multiple different generations, in the community. So that's the kind of experience we had. We loved it here. It's very neighborly, and I think that, it was rewarding, I'll just say that, to have that experience that night. I know that it made her night, and certainly when we look back on it, hopefully it made an impression on our kids as well, just to be able to help. So when you think about multi-generational, part of what drives that specifically in Stoneybrook are all of the options available. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time, a little bit later in this video, because I'm actually going to go down a couple of the roads to be able to show you what the villas look like, what the condos look like, and of course there are single-family homes in Stoneybrook. So it's a really large community. There's preserve views, there's golf views, there's water views. There's really just about anything you could want, within this community. And again, the golf is not bundled, so your fees are low. You pay to play, and it's pretty reasonable most of the year. Of course, as you get into peak season, holidays, etc., it does get a little bit more expensive. So again, I'm just making my way down this path because I wanted to show you what the 1.3 miles looks like. This was about, I think 2 o'clock in the afternoon. School is in session, so you're probably not seeing a lot of kids. You might be wondering, how active is it really? So we'll talk about that here in just a second, but we're coming up to the end of the path here. and I actually did it on the odometer. It was 1.3 miles. All right, so I feel like I'm doing a David Letterman's top 10 list. I'm going to bring you back. So the first one we talked about, reason number one you would want to call Stoneybrook home, location. Again, I can't say this enough. It is just the best location. You're 5 to 10 minutes to Gulf Coast Town Center. You're 5 to 10 minutes to Coconut Point. But you really don't need that unless you're going shopping or looking for something special for dining. Everything is out your front gate, from gas to banks to grocery to CVS, you name it. Number two was fees. And again, some of the lowest fees in the area. Number three we just talked about was multi-generational. So again, there's a total mix of housing options available here. And number four is active. So there is so much to do here. And I kind of tried to show you. I know it's not the best angle. If anybody wants to see more video, just let me know. Drop me a comment or shoot us an email or text. Happy to go in and show you specifically some of the amenities. I didn't talk about them all. 1.3 mile walking path, which I just did in the last clip, so you could see it kind of end to end. People jog on it, of course, rollerblade, you name it. There's sport courts, there's basketball, there's the lap pool, there's tennis, pickleball, baseball, beach volleyball. There's a kids playground, soccer field. I don't know what I'm missing, but essentially there's a lot. I can tell you that while we were in here, there was all kinds of stuff to do. So there were movie nights that were sponsored by some of the folks within the community. There was a Stoneybrook celebration day where tents would be set up on the sports fields, and you'd have everything from wing eating contests to you name it. You could get popcorn and hot dogs and etc. They were starting to do, and I think they continue are, although COVID has slowed some things down, there's food truck nights, so people can gather. There's a ton of space over by the community center. So I would just say it's one of the more active communities. It's a lot of fun. It's a very mixed, diverse, both culturally but also in age. And I think that's really one of the things that makes this community quite rewarding. Okay, so there's one last one that we're going to talk about. And if you've got kids in the elementary school age, this one might be important to you. So stay tuned. Okay, guys, number 5, the big reveal. Pinewoods Elementary School. So it doesn't apply to everybody, but if you've got elementary school age kids and you get into Pinewoods, you don't want to live anywhere else. There is a private entrance to Pinewoods right from the side of the fields. You have no more car line, no more buses. If you're lucky enough to have one, you hop in your golf cart, you bring your kids to school, they walk through the private gate, and you pick them up the same way in the afternoon. So I was talking through a lot of this, but the last clip you saw all of the villas. I'm now showing you all of the condos. The condos have covered carport parking and additional storage. The upstairs units have vaulted ceilings. Really great option, anywhere from about 1,150 square feet to 1,300 if you get the 2-bedroom with a den. The villas that we strolled past, if you saw, most of the units have a single car garage, but the end units, 2-car garage.